All right, 5:30, let's go ahead and get started. Let's call this meeting to order. First up on our agenda is approval of minutes. I have been told that there are a number of issues with the minutes and that we need to pull this item from the agenda and revisit it next month. Does that mean, Jeremy, do we need to table it officially, or can we just simply pull it?
Yeah, make a motion to table it, we'll bring that back.
Okay, so anybody care to make it?
Table.
Make a motion to table.
Okay, all those in favor of tabling, say aye.
There's some
Aye.
errors in it.
All right, moving on.
There's some things that need to be corrected, so we're gonna table and bring it back.
3 or so weeks ago.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is case number PD 2019-001.
Two.
Excuse me, 2. It's incorrect on the staff report. Consider a development plan for PD Plan Development District zoning classification of Green Acre Addition being lots 2 through 21, Block 9, Green Acres Addition, City of Stephenville, Erath County, Texas. Jeremy.
So this case, consider a development plan for PD plan development for the Green Acres addition. Last month, we brought this as a concept plan. And so this is the next step in the process, is to bring a development plan to you guys for approval. This will be a recommendation to council for the Green Acres addition. As you will see, just to kind of recap some of the information that we presented in the past, the lots 2 through 21 in the Green Acres addition. The zoning is single family. Future land use calls for it to be single family. So what we're doing with this plan development is taking the road, Wiley, and it will be relocated and renamed. Still pushing for the Jeremy Allen Road, but still not getting any traction for that. But, and then we will, the property will be on the south. There'll be no ingress, egress on Tabb Street. And there will, of course, not be any ingress, egress on the north side, because that is the property owner side. The city will own the property, and then we will look to sell or deed that off to the property owners on the north. So there won't be any access on the north side as well. We are talking about a footer. There will, as we talked about last time in the concept plan and in this plan, there'll be a footer on the fence on the north side. The developer has agreed to that, and the landowners has requested that, and so I don't think that that'll be an issue. Well, just looking at some of the requirements for the plan development, typical single-family home would be 1,500 square feet in our zoning. The proposed plan development would be no less than 1,700 square feet. Type of construction is 8-12 roof pitch. We don't have any requirement for that. Type of construction, we typically don't have a requirement for that in our zoning, but the developer is putting in 30-year dimensional roof shingles. Landscaping must meet 50% of the total land requirement. That will be met with this. Minimum two vehicle parking spaces. That will be with a minimum 2-car garage. The minimum lot size for a single family is 7,500 square foot. These are going to be a little bit larger than that for the lot sizes, but for the plan development's sake, there will be nothing less than 7,500 square feet. So no one will be able to come in and buy one of those lots and separate them into smaller lots. The minimum lot depth is 100 feet, 25 feet from front yard setback. Side yard setback is 25 from a corner lot, and I believe it's 5 feet from the side. The minimum of the main building coverage is 40%. The road standard typically is a 50-foot right-of-way. This road will be a 40-foot right-of-way. No sidewalk will be required, or that would be additional. Typically, it's required in the subdivision, but because of the consolation that we made with this being a 40-foot road, that the developer has asked for a waiver of that sidewalk requirement, which we discussed last meeting. In this particular plan and development plan, you'll see the difference that's added in your packet is from a concept plan. You have all this information, any change that made, but also in the development plan, it requires a schedule to be put in, so you guys have that schedule with submittal of plans and, continue what they estimate the build out to be by February of 2020 for the city final punch list and completion of lots. What it also requires for the plan development is each year through the plan development until it's completed is to come back every year and give you guys an update on where they are. So if they only have one house built, they got to come and basically explain why they haven't met the schedule, and so that'll be a requirement that we discuss with them as we move forward. Hopefully, the schedule's met, we won't have any issues. So, they will be paying the parkland dedication fee to satisfy the dedication requirement for that. I'm open to any questions. I know the developer is here. He spoke last time. We can get him back up and answer any questions if you guys have any. Additional questions from last time. And of course, it's a public hearing, so we will open that up.
Okay, let's go ahead and open up the public hearing. If we do have quite a number of people who've signed up to speak on various issues tonight, so we're going to hold to the 3-minute time limit. If anybody here would like to speak in favor of this development, you can come up to the podium now. Okay, anybody wish to speak against this development?
I can't say that it's against, but I do have a question.
Sure, come on up. And please state your name and address.
Okay, Debbie Blue, 333 Wiley, here in Stephenville. Our property is the 5 acres kind of on the flip side of Hillcrest, actually, and the developers here? Yeah, okay. Couple of questions. I think last time we talked about traffic and drainage and things like that. I think we covered that pretty sufficiently, and I basically don't think there were any specific answers. Did they do any studies on drainage?
Well, they have not done the drainage study yet because, once they
Haven't
get
done
through
it?
this part, they have to meet drainage requirements in order to get a building permit for any building out there. So
Awesome.
that'll be the next step with them, is they have to meet civil engineering. Usually that's the longest process with this because we're pretty thorough with those reviews. So if that's a concern, rest assured that we're going to make sure that's met.
Okay, it's Jeremy, right?
Yes.
You said that, what did you say about February 22, 2020?
That's the estimated build out for the houses. Is that right, Dan? Is that?
February of 2020 would be the build out of the development as far as the lots being developed, and then we anticipate building about 10 houses per year, so that would carry it for another 2 years.
So the neighborhood will be in the process couple of years.
Right. The first part of it, as they're grading the site and preparing the site is going to be the longest, probably most inconvenienced part of it, just like any construction process. But similar to like Elk Ridge, when you go out there now, there's not a lot of interference with the building. They'll build 1 or 2 houses at a time, or however many I guess they sell. So I don't think you'll see it significant after they get through the civil and the grading part.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What about, we talked about fencing the last time on tab. I guess it'd be on the 2 homes, I guess there'd be 2 homes on Hillcrest, is that right? Hillcrest would be the west side of the property when you first come in? Will there be like an entrance on both ends, obviously? Will there be any like landscaping particularly that you would?
We typically sod the front yards and put in shrubs, and very often, and we usually put in about 10 pallets of sod, which is a lot of sod, just 450 square feet of a pallet of sod. So
I think they said about 50%.
it'll be more than what's required.
Okay. But as far as driving down Hillcrest and we see 2 homes there, would there be any landscaping there, or would it be 2
It's
fences?
often up to the homeowner whether they want to add additional landscaping above and beyond our package.
But on the outside of you put a fence up on the side of those 2 homes, 2 homes on Hillcrest, and I guess 2 homes on
It'll
Dale.
carry over to the corners. Is
Yeah.
that's what you're asking,
Okay.
yes.
So
It may not
basically-
be 100% coverage, but it'll be vast majority of the side.
All righty. What about any kind of street lights? Will there be any?
City will require, I believe, there will be a requirement for a street light.
A street light, Yeah, our subdivision calls for certain spacing within that subdivision, so, I think it's like every 200 or 300 feet, here's an engineer, so he's probably looked through it already, but I think it's every 200 or 300 feet, we require a street light that the developer has to put in, and so there will be requirement for that. They'll have to meet that with the plan submittal.
The reason I say is that we're on the not-so-city side right now, the countryside, I guess. And there is one street light there on where we are, Wiley and Hillcrest. I'm just thinking, but on the property, there might be one or two or whatever. Okay,
As well as fire hydrants.
excuse me?
And fire hydrants will also be a requirement.
Okay. Okay, and we talked about traffic drainage. Okay, I guess that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
All right.
God bless.
Thank you.
And just to address your traffic, you mentioned traffic being, I have talked to Public Works. We will do some additional studies out there to see, how the traffic pattern has, with the speed humps and all that. I know there was almost a celebration last meeting when we talked about that. So, I don't know, I don't have a time frame for you, but they will look at that again.
Well, where we are, just west of Hillcrest, there is a speed limit sign, 30, and that's in the country. But from on the part that's in the city, tab that's in the city, from Dale up to Hillcrest, there's no speed limit sign.
Right.
So,
Well, we can look at that too. But like I said, even when I said it last time, there may not be any changes to it depending on how the study comes out. So
Right.
let's not get everybody excited but we'll look at that again.
and if you come in from I'll say the Walmart side, down through the development, there are no speed limit signs anyplace in the
Okay.
country. So I guess that's something.
In the
that-
countryside, yeah,
Countryside.
on the
Countryside.
county,
Of course affects all of us.
yeah. Let me look at that. I'll see if it's not us, we'll see if the county can put something out there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak against this development? Okay, we'll close the meeting, we'll close the public meeting. Commissioners, is there any motions to be had or any discussion?
I was under the impression that we approved this last month.
We approved the preliminary, correct, Jeremy? And this is the official, actual plan.
So when-
So we're required to approve a preliminary and then the actual plan.
So it gives the developer a chance if there's, like the footer that was requested, some of those things, it gives the developer a chance to go back, make sure all those things are met, and now it's come through basically like a rezone request would be covered, where you guys give a recommendation to council, and then council would give final approval for it.
So I was under a mistaken impression then.
Well, I make a motion that we make the recommendation to city council to approve the plan development.
Second.
Let's take it to a vote. All those in favor of approving this plan development, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, this passes. Moving on. Case number PD 2019-003. Consider a development plan for a planned development district zoning classification for lots 1 and 3, block 156 of the city addition to the city of Stephenville. Jeremy.
Okay. The applicant has met the requirements of a development plan, as you guys know from last time. We did listen to a concept plan for this particular project as well. The concept plan was unanimously approved and presented by Planning and Zoning Commission. With a recommendation by commission, the applicant will be guided through the process. So we're at the plan development stage or development plan stage for this plan development, and this was off of Floral and Tarleton. And you can see, I'll just fill through some of the pictures that we went through last time. These are true townhome condominiums in this plan development where the landowner will sell the units off individually. This is not like necessarily an apartment complex. So it is in the central business district, which we'd be rezoned that to plan development. Just to go through a little bit of the requirements that they will be met with the plan development, or they have agreed to. The minimum area for the single family is 1,500. These units will be 1,656 square feet. Type of construction, they'll meet all the zoning requirements for that. We got the landscaping requirement, they'll at least meet the 15% that's required. They will have minimum 2 vehicle parking spaces available. The minimum lot width is 75 feet in single family. They are meeting that. 100 feet lot depth. Minimum front yard setback is 25 feet. They're going to go 35 feet. The minimum side yard setback is 7 feet with a corner lot 25 feet. The side yard, minimum 10 feet side yard back on the north side of the buildings on the north floral, and the south side of the building fronting North Vine, and a 5 feet setback on the north side of that same building. There will be a minimum of 17 feet separation in between the 2 buildings fronting North Floral. The minimum rear yard setback is 25 feet. They're going to have 44 feet. The maximum lot coverage is 40%. They will meet that. The road standard to adjacent road is 50-foot right-of-way, and they will have platted a 50-foot right-of-way through there. So, as you know, we have the development schedule. You guys have that. So they're, upon approval of the city council's intent, the developer submit a final engineering plans and building permit for review and begin the site development and building of the first 3-unit building immediately after appropriate permits are issued. Approximately May 1st, 2019 is when they're hoping to get that through. The construction will proceed on the remaining 2 buildings as individual units are sold. They are anticipating absorption of approximately 2 units sold per month, which will give them an estimated completion date of the entire project of late summer 2020. Keyway and Developments LLC commences construction May 1st. They will finish the project 2020. So just a couple of the staff notes that will be included in this is the applicant proposed to pay the parkland fees in lieu of the dedication of land. Sidewalks will be required in this per subdivision regulations. Curb and gutter will be required. Drainage will be addressed in the civil review, and a replat will be required for this. So I think there was pictures, I think we went through some of those. You guys have some additional ones in your packet. I can answer any questions that you have, but overall, the development does promote redevelopment of downtown. Both Tarleton and Floral Streets both receive small amounts of traffic, and the estimated increase in traffic count should have a minimal impact to the traffic flow. Varied land uses are allowed in the central business district. This planned development housing should contribute to the overall district. Can answer any questions. Mr. Malcolm Canute is here as the developer and can answer any questions for you if you guys, if there's something different from last month that you guys see.
Okay, let's go ahead and open a public hearing, sorry. Those who wish to speak in favor of this development, come up to the podium now. Anyone? All right, those who wish to speak against? Or question it? Get more information? Yeah, please, Wood. Please state your name and address.
Basically, sound like a good idea to me. I own this, that's his land right over there. I own basically this, 3 acres, except for down there. And it's making up all these different parcels. And I intend to have a kind of a music venue type place there. And I think all those people moving in there would probably be good for me and good for everybody. Except unless they're complaining about loud music, you know, and I don't know how that works, you know. And once he sells the houses, it's not up to him, so. You got any?
We have a noise ordinance, so we'll address that if that does come up. So that'd be the only thing I can add to that.
Okay. Does that make any difference as to different zones and everything?
No, I mean, there's a noise ordinance that covers the entire city, so,
Okay, all right. I don't have any objections at this time.
thank you, sir.
Thank you, Boyd. Anyone else wish to speak against this development or about?
Maybe not against it, but maybe just.
Question it? Sure. Please state your name and address.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Justin Landers. Me and my wife live at 415 East Tarleton Street. It's a little section that's right beside the development. So only house on that block, basically, and stuff like that. Right now, I've got sun coming through my house, but you start putting up condos or anything like that, you know, I'm gonna block everything off. I'm not against any of that. That's fine. It just creates a better deal for the development and for the, actually for the environment over there and for the community and everything. Just wanted to know, you know, how many houses are gonna be in there. You know, at one time, there was a question about at the back of that lot, I guess you would say on the south end where Green Street runs through, that there was actually a street running through that property. Is that gonna be part of that development? Is it gonna be put back?
The develop-
previous guy had.
Let's
actually-
put that to the developer,
No.
who is here today, I believe.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
This is a very good question. And I've been working with Jeremy to determine whether or not there actually is right-of-way that the city has going through, that will provide for an extension of Green Street. And I just gave him a letter from King Title that shows per a survey that was just done, and the 1956 King map of the city of Steve adopted in 1956, that right-of-way does not exist. And that actual parcel right there that shows it right-of-way belongs to the people that we are contract purchasers on purchasing the property. I believe that, Jeremy, I just gave to him this evening, because Mr. Oxford, who is our attorney, has been out of town on spring break and just got back to his office this morning, and I immediately jumped on him and asked him if he could get something from King Cod, because we discussed this earlier, and he was able to produce that. And I just gave it to Jeremy 10 minutes ago, so he hasn't even had a chance to really look at it. But we are of the belief, unless somebody can show us otherwise, that there is no right-of-way there and Green Street will not be extended. There's no reason for our development to extend it. I think it would just create more impervious surface, and that's not really necessary for the small amount of homes that we're gonna build there.
Sounds good. It's just a question that had come up in the previous past, was not only myself, but other residents that had lived in the neighborhood. Most of them are, I'm just by myself, and a couple of people behind me, about the only ones left in the community left. But like I say, I'm not against this at all, you know, just like I said, it'll be good for the community and everything like that. Just wanted to really find out about the street, about, you know, about how many homes or how many townhouses would be there and everything. And, you know, how it would really affect me. Like I said, I'm the one that's probably the only one that's gonna really be affected by any of this, because I'm the only one left on that block.
Sure.
That's all I had.
Okay, you got all your questions answered?
Yeah. that's-
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak? Okay, we'll go ahead and close this public hearing, and I'll open it up to commissioners. Anybody have a motion?
I move we recommend to the city council that we approve case number PD 2019-003.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, this motion passes. Moving on to case number PD 2019-004. Consider a concept plan for a planned development district zoning classification for lots 3 and
Part
Part 4, Block 73 of the city addition to the city of Stephenville.
So this is a concept plan for planned development off of Alexander Road. The applicant has met the requirements of a concept plan for the planned development. With approval of the concept plan, the developer will come back with any changes, if any, that's recommended, and to a later meeting with a development plan similar to what we just heard. So this is the property that we're discussing. This is a kind of a site plan for this development. It's a kind of a site plan. It is a site plan for the development. So the houses will look, these units will look, you know, very upscale. These are similar where they will be sold individually, so it won't be apartment units per se. They'll be condo townhomes that will be sold individually. It is zoned multifamily, which would allow for apartments to be built in these. The future land use does call for it to be single family, so this does go with kind of the area, and that, you know, instead of being apartments, it would be typically a single family type of a home. So to go through a little bit of the requirements for the planned development, the minimum area is for a multifamily be 800 square feet. And so that's what this zoning is. The proposed is 1,376 square feet. There is no requirement for constructions, but all the buildings that has been proposed by the developer will have an exterior finish of glass, stone, stucco, brick, tile, concrete, exterior wood, and some fiberboard products, similar to what you saw in your picture there. The landscaping, 15% of the total landscaping requirements. It looks like the developer, and you've seen what he's planning on putting in with the landscape plan or the write-up for it. The developer will meet that requirement and then some. Your parking regulations, the minimum of 2 vehicle parking spaces. A boat and RV parking spots are prohibited in the front areas. Minimum 1-car garage will be required. Drive access shall be from the streets, and parking is only permitted on the paved surface or concrete. The minimum lot width is 30 feet in this type of zoning. The underlying zoning, he is proposing 75 feet. Minimum lot depth is 100 feet. That is what he's proposing. The minimum front yard setback is 25 feet, which is what he's proposing for this planned development. The side yard setback is 5 feet. From a corner lot is 25 feet. There'll be a minimum of 20 feet separation between the 2 buildings on the side yards. Minimum rear yard setback is 15 feet. Minimum of 45 rear yard separation between the buildings that back up to another building on the interior of the development, and a minimum of 25 feet rear yard setback on any buildings backing up to the green space or the adjacent property is what the developer will be submitting. Maximum lot coverage, he will meet the 40% of the maximum lot coverage. The development schedule, which was submitted, the developer looks to do similar to the other one where we submitted in May. The applicant proposes to dedicate facilities in lieu of parkland, and that'll be something that we will have to iron out prior, but, the developer might be able to speak a little more to it, but what they're wanting to do is create a pathway across the river and actually build a bridge across the river to allow this side of the river to access the park. And so we will need to still work out those details prior. So that in part of the parkland dedication is they could dedicate facilities in lieu of the fee or the land, and so this might be a good addition. We'll get Jen Basham, our director of Parks and Leisure, to look at that, and we'll make sure that that's all met. So this might be a good alternative to that parkland or the fee to access the park from this side of the river. Sidewalks will be required, curb and gutter will be required, drainage will be addressed in the civil review. I know I've received a few phone calls about the potential drainage because this does kind of slope down to the river. Some of it is in the floodplain. The developer is aware of that, and they'll make those adjustments in the civil review and make sure that it is all that is addressed in the plan review. So I think that kind of covers at least the summary. If there's any specific questions, the developer, Mr. Malcolm Canute, is here and can answer any questions that maybe I can't. So,
Okay, I'll go ahead and open a public hearing. Those wishing to speak in favor of this plan development can come up to the podium now. And please state your name and address.
My name is Bill Wells. I live at 801 Alexander Road, and I am not opposed to this. I do have some questions for the developer, though. The wavy blue line to the south is my property adjacent to what you're proposing. And there's an agricultural fence line down through there. I'm kind of curious what your plans are for the current fence line
The fence line that would separate your property.
from the one that you're.
Right now, our plan would be to just leave that the way it is.
Okay.
We have no reason to do anything to it. We're keeping our buildings, as you can see. What we're trying to do is create as much view and open space behind the buildings so that, you're in a city setting here, but we don't want people backing up directly to each other. So we're trying to keep as many of the buildings on the perimeter especially where you're talking about farther away from that property line, closer to the street, so that we can, you know, you get better views out the back.
So, I'm away from my, sorry, I can't see. The dashed line that's running here, if it runs across my property, the proposed and back this way, what is that? I can't read
Is there any magnification on it?
Yeah, we can't see. I can't see
The
it.
green line, I believe, is,
I'm trying to look at that.
sanitary sewer line. Is that, am I correct?
So what,
I didn't even hear the question, I'm sorry.
Just asking, the dash green line is, I believe that's a sanitary sewer line,
I believe so, yes.
main.
Yeah.
Green is sanitary sewer.
So I believe there's and I'd have to confirm this, but I believe there's an easement there for that for that stormwater or sanitary sewer. Yeah.
It goes across the ditch that's on our property adjacent to that. So there's not a current sewer line there, I know that. So there's proposal to put sewage lines in there?
No, there's no proposal for that. I'd have to look at the survey, so I will do that as part of the concept plan. I'll take this back before we approve the development plan, and I will have an answer for you. We'll get your number before you leave, and I'll get an answer for you the next day or so. I
You
have,
already have our number.
yes, we do.
Okay. The other question I have is on the drainage, because it does, like Jeremy pointed out, it slopes downhill. Once again, it slopes down to me. So I'm kind of curious what your plans are for drainage on
Well, our preliminary plan, which is very preliminary, we're working with a local engineer, who has an office in Hyco. She's been working locally with an engineering firm here in Stephenville for the last several years and just started her own company. She's very familiar. She works with the city on a daily basis on different projects. She has put a proposed retention pond on this lower corner of our property right here that will capture all of the stormwater flow on any, on our whole property. We'll capture it and hold it and then release it per the ordinance. So it'll actually help any flow that is coming towards your property right now. It'll lessen what is there today. And that's all governed by the village ordinance. So again, when we get to the point where we get approval on this, the preliminary engineering, which then leads to final engineering, all has to be reviewed by the city, and we have to meet and exceed any of their standards.
Okay.
Could you point out where you were saying they were gonna put that catchment pond?
It is going to be, this is south side, I believe, so it's going to be behind, there's a 3-unit building, 3-unit building, 3-unit building. It's going to be on the property behind those buildings.
So how many total units are you talking about?
54.
54.
Yes.
Wow. So it looks like that extends beyond what the original thing is we got in the mail.
In where at?
Well, it looked like in there, it looked like it spread out.
No, this is, are you talking about where the secondary entrance is up here on the north side?
No. What we got outlined in blue showed the plan ending right there on that fence line. This looks like this goes on.
Actually, Jeremy, I noticed that just a moment ago on your one overhead. I think we've already had a survey done. What we're doing from the landowner is we're buying the buildable part of the property. I would say 90% of what is left is all in the floodplain. She is keeping on the, I guess that would be the east side of our proposed secondary entrance there. She's keeping that for herself. She wants to have access to the floodplain. So this is what has, I mean, since day one has been proposed. If it was a mistake on something that I gave Jeremy, then I apologize. But
I'm just saying what we had was the dark outline right here.
the dark blue outline?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is,
Straight up to this point.
Right.
But now it looks like it goes
Okay.
like
It's a total of, it's in the application I filed, 7.5 acres, I want to say.
Okay. So this
Yeah.
catch containment that you're talking about behind those units toward the south, is that for, also for the units that move up
For
back toward?
everything that we're proposing.
Okay.
So if our total development is, let's call it 7.5 acres, it covers the entire 7.5 acres.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
I just don't want to get flooded.
No, I totally understand that. And again, we have to meet and exceed what the ordinance states. So in my experience in development over the last 25 years, once this is developed and a retention pond is properly installed there, it will make for a better situation than you have today. Because again, the idea of the retention pond is to control the runoff, which right now there is no control. Water hits the surface of the land and it runs to its lowest point, seeks its lowest point.
That's true.
Right now, we have to contain that and release that at the rate that the ordinance.
That's true, but the more roof lines you put in, the more the water comes down.
And all of that is taken in, every inch,
Because
square
land
inch of
absorbs.
impervious surface is taken into consideration in that
Okay.
ordinance.
That's fine. I just don't want to be flooded
No,
out.
I don't want you to
Thank
either.
y'all.
Thank you, sir. All right, anybody else who wishes to speak in favor of this development? Anybody who wishes to speak against, please come to the podium now. And please state your name and address.
My name's Robin Harrison, and I live at 1040 Counts. And from this map, it shows absolutely nothing. From looking at the computer, I can see that there's going to be entrance at Counts in Dublin. Right now, we have 5 houses on our street, and I'm going to have traffic of 54 more houses coming down my street. That's an issue.
Let's put this to the developer. It looks to me like there's multiple entrances off Alexander Road as well.
Well, is
or-
Alexander Road, I mean, right now, if I'm going to work and school's going in, I have to sit there 10 minutes to get out onto Alexander, to go
Yeah.
up to go to work.
Yeah.
So what's 54 more houses gonna do to that?
Right. Is that the only entrance and exit to this?
We have, the main entrance is going to be off of Alexander Road. And I believe if you think about people that are going to be living in this situation, where are they going to be coming in and going out? They're going to, Alexander Road is the logical place because that's going to either take you to Washington or it's going to take you to the South Loop. The secondary exit off of Counts Road, typically in the subdivisions that I've developed in the past, fire protection, police protection always require a secondary, life safety requires a secondary ingress and egress point. If there's a bad storm, a tree falls over the entrance to Alexander Road, and there's a life safety issue, a fire truck and ambulance can't get in there. The secondary exit entrance is always required. In this instance, I can absolutely understand your concern.
Yes,
But-
I'm one of 5 houses on that street, and that's the way I like it. I don't want 54 more homes behind me,
Again,
and I
I-
don't want the traffic from 54 homes coming down in front of my house.
Lisa, for the sake of keeping order, if there's questions, ask all your questions that you have, and then we'll give the developer a chance to come up and answer those questions. Typically don't like a lot of back and forth with these
Alright.
meetings, so sorry. So if you have some questions that you can pose, and then he can come up and answer those.
Privacy fence is gonna be installed to protect the properties that are already there?
Why don't you just go ahead and propose all your questions, then we'll have
That's
them
the
come
only
up.
one I can
Just
think
the
of right
privacy
now.
fence, okay, so the
I
questions
mean,
of,
I'm flabbergasted. This map shows me nothing. You guys have done nothing to tell me what's going on here. It goes clear to here, not this blue line. 54 stinking houses? Privacy fences, yes or no?
Well, I'd be more than happy to address all your concerns.
That's my concern right now.
okay.
That's the only one I can think of at the moment. Will you build privacy fences to protect my open backyard that looks into this lovely field that you're going to build 54 houses on?
Okay, thank you. Let's bring up the developer to
Okay.
address. Thank you.
I'm Malcolm Canute with Keyway Developments, And I absolutely understand your concern and the concerns of all of the neighbors in this area. It's been a vacant parcel for a long time, but things are subject to change. And the zoning is clearly there that suggests that at some point this is going to become a residential community. We have opted to come before you with a planned development to change this from R3 zoning, which allows, correct me if I'm wrong, but up to 23 units per acre. So if it's not us and someone comes in and they want to put an apartment complex there, they can put up, according to how it is currently zoned, up to 23 units per acre. At, call it 8 acres and 54 units, we're slightly more than 6 units per acre right now. And keeping as much open space as possible. We have the idea, the concept here, and I can talk about the concept since this is concept plan, is smaller living spaces with more green spaces surrounding them. This particular development, unlike the one that was just discussed before this, is going to be smaller spaces with a slightly more upscale amenities. Nicer landscaping, nicer finishes on the exterior of the homes, nicer finishes on the interior of the homes. It's not intended to be a rental community. The first project that we proposed, I can see an investor possibly buying one of those townhomes and renting it to kids at the university, younger people, whoever. This, I see probably more than 90, 95%, if not 100% owner occupied. So you have a different type of resident. As far as the additional cars, I understand your concern, but if you look at it, there's, unless one or two of the buildings up at the top up here, they want to take an alternative way out. They might go out Counts, or I believe the other one is Dublin. They might go that way, but all the rest of these, the majority of these interior people or units are going to be coming out and, like I said, exiting more than likely towards the South Loop to head to wherever their job is, or up to Washington. And it just logically doesn't make sense for them to backtrack and go through the community and then exit through one of the
Well, I mean, and
other
all
roads.
of them would definitely not be backtracking because there's proposed homes right there. at
Well,
that
that's why I said
entrance.
there might be a handful of homes right there, but I can't see it being more than a single-digit issue. In our plan, we have 3 floor plans. We have a ranch plan, it's about 1,300 square feet, and then 2 two-story floor plans. The ranch plans are only gonna have 1-car garages, because we're anticipating empty nesters possibly, younger single people, older people. Trend is for less vehicles, so we think you'll see a limited number of vehicular movements for those units on a daily basis than you will the 2-story units. We don't anticipate this development having a lot of teenage kids, so you're not gonna, I don't think you'll see that increased 16 to 20-year-old who has a 3rd car in the family. So again, I'm just saying this to, I want to address your concerns and I understand them. As far as the privacy fences go, we have not anticipated any privacy fences. We would be open to discussing that for sure. I mean, in the upper corner there, I don't want to, if I say we're going to put privacy fences around everything, it defeats what we're here trying to do.
Well, no, and that's not what I'm asking for. Right now, I don't have curtains on my bedroom window because guess what? No one lives behind me. So now I'll have people living behind me. Okay, that's progress. Okay, I understand that. I'm just frustrated. So, now I get all these townhome owners staring into my backyard, and then it's my responsibility if I want privacy that I don't have now as you build the property, for me to build a privacy fence?
No, listen, again, I understand your concerns, and I am more than willing to step back and talk with Jeremy and see what the city has done. I listened to the Amber Home developments last month and again this month, and I understand what they're doing. If there is something that within reason that the city would like us to do to ensure that level of privacy is maintained without having a negative impact on our community, I mean, I'll be dead honest with you, there's a lot that goes into just getting to this point. it starts with an idea, it starts with negotiating with the landowner, it starts with coming to the city and the city staff, and it starts with engineers and land planners. I had not anticipated privacy fences, but I think you make a very good point. And we don't want to be a bad neighbor. I'm a Stephenville resident here, I have been for a year and a half. I don't want our development to be a bad neighbor. We are promoting, if you saw the last development, I'm very big on the walkable community. And I think we don't get to know each other if we don't pass each other in the street. So we don't want to be a bad neighbor. If that is something that the city and the Planning and Zoning Commission here thinks that should be added to this community, we absolutely will listen and see if we can come up with a solution that works for everybody.
Can I say something to you? I do know that if he doesn't put these well-crafted townhomes in our area, that you'll be looking at 3-story apartment buildings. And so there is what you'll be staring at.
Right.
So I would much rather it be something like he is proposing.
Right.
Than
And
it,
I
for it to be
understand
something
that.
like we have up on the end of the Alexander
Right,
Road right
and
now.
that's what I was afraid of. And I realize that I'm going to have to be curtains, it's 2 stories, I understand all that. But, we have Cheney Lake right now because the cows walk up there,
Sure.
it's nothing. And so there's homes and yards and other people, just would be.
Jeremy, let me ask this question real
Shoot.
quickly. If we approve the concept plan, then the privacy fence, and I understand the privacy fence issue could effectively be brought up under the development plan, is that correct?
If we can, just for the sake of trying to get back on track, let's finish the public hearing, any part of that, then you can ask a question and then we'll answer that. Let's make an attempt to get there.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anybody else wishing to speak against this plan development?
I have a question.
Yes,
I'm neither here nor there on whether it's right or wrong.
okay. Can you state your name and address for the,
I'm Sonia Estrada. I'm at 690 Alexander.
thank you.
And for the developer, for this whole water issue, I see that we have that catchment pond. It does drain a lot. We face right onto that plot where you're going to be developing, and I'm wondering how much concrete is going to be in place, because that's an impervious. You say you're going to build another storm drain. Well, that's all going to spit right back into the creek. It's going to continue to flow up onto the road, and right now we still have that problem. Or do you also, have you considered maybe impervious development ideas for your housing?
Well, let's finish the question, all you got, and then he can respond, so we try to keep the order. So it's not a back, we try not to do any back and forth with this, so, okay.
That's your question?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So let's bring Mr. Canute back up to the podium, let him answer that question, please.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
If I understand the question correctly, that's another very good question. Are you asking how much additional impervious surface our development is going to create versus what's there right now, and what's going to happen to the water once it hits that impervious surface?
Right, I know what's gonna happen with the water, once it hits, it's gonna hit the concrete and it's just gonna drain down. I'm wondering, yes, how much concrete are you guys gonna be putting in? And then have y'all considered maybe in your plan, since this is gonna be an upscale type of development, nowadays, a lot of people to try to have more water infiltration are coming up with ideas in their landscaping and the building to have that infiltrate into the ground rather than just putting straight concrete. Because right now that area is very, very prone to flooding, and we're coming up on rain season and we get flooded in. And so even with more storm drain, more concrete, and even with that catchment pond, I don't know, it may still be an issue.
Well, as I understand our very, very preliminary engineering that we have had done on this, and by very preliminary, what the engineer does is calculate the rough amount of new impervious surface, and I would define impervious, if I'm using the word properly, by hard surface, and whether that's not just sidewalks and roads, but rooftops, driveways, patios as well.
Right.
They calculate that, and they formulate it to figure out where's all this water gonna go. And they create a design where it's going to find its way to a catch basin, whether that's through over the top of the surface or through storm drains that are put in the street, in various low points, and it makes its way to that detention point. And then from that detention point, it's released at a slower rate into an area where it doesn't negatively affect other properties. My belief of what I understand about it right now is everything flows this way. Am I correct? From, if you live there, you know this better than I do.
It flows, it kind of, because it's gonna go down that slope, and then it goes from where I live on Alexander, it kind of comes then, because we live near Dry Creek, so we get it from both areas. The front, the Dry Creek, then it goes into the storm drain, but then it all starts to pile in that one area right in front of the storm drain. And then that's just.
So what you're saying, what your concern is then is that
Now with more concrete.
that's going to back up,
on
create more
top of
backup
the
onto the
slope,
other
it's
side
gonna
of Alexander.
continue- Right, it's gonna feed it a lot more water with more
Sure.
concrete. So that's what I'm saying, and your home designs and how you construct them, are you guys have y'all considered implementing anything to offset that aside from just another storm?
Normal storm drains and
Yeah.
curb and gutter and such. No, we haven't. And I'd be honest with you, I don't, right off the top of my head, know of any products or types of construction that would help offset that. We'd certainly be willing to look into it. I will tell you, however, though, that as I understand civil engineering, that, and as I understand this property and the floodplain, and I've been out here dozens of times now with the surveyor and with the engineers and everything is going towards the Bosque River. Is that a fair statement to say?
No.
No?
Everything actually goes to the south on the main,
On you?
and then to the Bosque.
Okay. Well,
Everything up above comes right down to that point down there on Main, and then it travels to the Bosque.
so this is good news for you.
Yeah.
We're stopping this from coming to your property now, and we have to figure out how to get it to the Bosque.
Take it to the Bosque, I don't want it.
Okay.
Unless, of course, my tank's always full, so.
If you
stop
need,
that.
if you need a diversion to fill the tank back up,
Yeah,
maybe we could do something.
yeah, right.
Again, I understand your problem and your concern, and my belief is, with that, just from preliminary point, we will lessen that backup because everything that is normally flowing down there right now and going into that same area where it's coming under Alexander from your property, it's gonna be, that's not gonna be going into that area anymore. It's going to, some of it maybe, but a lot of it is going to be going back to the east to the Bosque River. We can't just put a pond in and have an outflow that is dumping all of the water onto the neighboring property. So that concern will be addressed. And I'm sure if the city feels that, there's, you know, that there's an issue there with the current, storm situation, we'll have to look at it collectively. But, I honestly believe that this will lessen that collection because we're diverting the water that's currently going there in another direction. So I think your concern is very legitimate, but I think it'll be addressed. Does that help?
For the next meeting, would you consider looking at other ways that your development can implement? I mean, so you're saying you're diverting, I just wanna make sure that I'm understanding it right. So you're diverting by putting in more storm drains in other areas, is that what your diversion is, what you're telling me?
For the most part, I mean, storm drains in various parts of our property. We have to, if this is a high point up here and the water's flowing that way, I can't just let the water flow right through the front door of these buildings that down here. We have to divert that, and that goes into a storm drain, into a curb and gutter system, diverts that water around to a catch basin. So stormwater ordinances, no matter where you go in the country, are very strict, and you have to follow them and adhere to them, or we won't get approval. Jeremy can testify to that. So what we will make a design that doesn't adversely affect our neighboring properties, our neighbors, and submit it to the city. And if the city is not comfortable with it and they feel it's going to adversely affect the neighbor, then they're going to make us change it.
So for the sake of this, the developer is going to be required, and that is with the civil part of it. I mean, if the developer wants to come up with something creative, to slow down that water, that's the developer. Our requirement for the city for drainage is to meet the ISWIM criteria, and which basically says that they will not drain any additional water onto the property to the adjacent property owner. So that's our requirement, and that will be handled in the civil review. This is a rezone case, which it does have some relevance and some concerns, I understand, but those concerns for drainage will be addressed in the civil review. But in the civil review, we do not allow any additional water to be poured onto the adjacent properties than what's already being drained onto the property. So, and our engineers do a really good job of being thorough, just like I mentioned in the last case. So that will be addressed. That size, that detention could be bigger than what he has on the map, and he has to remove three properties because he needs bigger detention. I mean, that'll all be kind of worked out in that in that civil review. And if that's the case, then we got to come back and make some adjustments. So there's a lot to be worked out with the drainage, but I can assure you that in the review that we will address those issues. So.
And just my last comment is, I don't mean to try to dodge the question about would we consider something alternative or different. I just don't know of anything off the top of my head. If we come up with a better way, if the engineers come up with a better way to divert water so that it can help alleviate that problem, we certainly would look into doing it.
Yeah, there's different ways. I mean, maybe we can get together and we can discuss some of the things that I talked about that
Certainly.
new developers are implementing to try to maybe promote infiltration rather than runoff. Because if we think about it, we're going to be adding 52 more cars. That means different things going on the cement that are then going to be running off. And whether it's in his yard or the Bosque River, that's still a problem that should probably be addressed.
Certainly. And they're usually called best management practices, and that's how the detention ponds are designed and then landscaped with native
Right,
grasses
yeah,
that
the detention pond is definitely
help
one
alleviate that
form of
problem.
the best management practices. There's also some that developers implement as well, so I didn't know if you did anything like that.
I'll tell you what, I'll give you all my contact information when we're done here.
Great.
And then we can meet.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wish to speak?
Yes, very briefly.
Please state your name and address.
Deegan Lawless, 624 Alexander. I'm actually here representing my mom, Peggy Freeman. Both for the city and the developer. My question is a safety issue, since I think it will be Alexander Road, which is the primary ingress and egress. It's already a pretty dangerous road, a lot of people speeding through there. Can steps be taken to deal with that? It's a residential road, it's supposed to be 30 miles per hour, but people come flying through there all the time. So I just want to know
I guess
if
that
there's
would
any.
be addressed to Jeremy.
Yeah, I can address that. So with any development, we don't require, per our subdivision regulations, we don't require a developer to do any kind of traffic analysis unless they meet a certain criteria of number additional trips on that road. So we don't require the developer to do that. If there's a safety issue, we could get, some traffic counters out there. We can do some things with PD, some signage, but on the developer part, we do not require that of the developer in the subdivision regulations. So if he was over additional 500, I think I'm pretty 99% sure, but don't quote me on it, additional 500 trips a day, then we would require a traffic analysis, and that is not going to be the case for this particular development. So,
All right, I understand. Thank
yeah.
you.
Thank you, sir.
If you do have some concerns about safety at any, intersection, let me know, or somebody at Public Works will do an analysis of that intersection or that area.
Okay.
All right.
Anybody else wish to speak? Okay, we will close the public hearing. Commissioners? Questions?
Yes,
concerns?
I have a question. On page 37 of our package, we have a piece of property outlined in blue. And then on page 44 of our package, half of this development is outside of that piece of property that's outlined in blue. And it appears from this map on page 44 that we include all of the property that is outlined in red bordered on the Bosque River. Which,
We're gonna get that
Which
corrected
other
with
one are
the,
we
the
dealing
developer's gonna need to submit a replat when we do this. And so we will get that boundary line corrected for the development plan.
okay, and it appears that off the corner of Counts and Dublin Streets, there is already a driveway to what appears in this aerial picture to be a residence, which would be very, very close to this property where the townhomes will be developed. That looks like a residence, and this looks like a driveway.
Right.
Is that included in the purchase of the land?
That is the existing curb cut for the entire parcel, which is, I believe, about 18 acres. And there is a long, narrow, or narrow, not necessarily long, building that's very run down that what has been in the past a few residential apartments. I'm told by the landowner that nobody is currently occupying those.
It's basically abandoned, then, is what you're
Yes.
saying? right
That's
now.
all
Okay.
part of-
Because I went out and looked at this property on Monday before I received this map, and I only looked at the property that was outlined in blue here. I didn't look at the property that went all the way back to the river. That's why I was questioning the proposed bridge across the river for pedestrian and bicycle traffic. And I was wondering how you got there, looking
Well-
at this.
Very good question. If I could just address them very quickly. The plan that we're submitting does include the driveway. Will be improved to be
So
part of.
your development plan includes, this piece of property was the one outlined in blue on the map that we received, the
Correct.
aerial view. So you're basically looking at this entire piece of property.
No,
here.
sir. No. If you, right on the right side of the street coming off of Couts Road, that's the property line. That's what we are purchasing and replatting. Coming down to where it takes a right-hand turn and goes, I'm sorry, I don't know
Well,
the
these appear to
directions.
be the townhouses
Yes.
that you're developing, which in our aerial view, this piece of property is the only one that was going to be considered this evening, so.
Right.
I didn't even get a chance to look at this other property because I received apparently invalid information. So you're including the whole property that goes all the way down to the river.
No.
You're not going to develop it all,
No.
but you're going to
No, we're not
acquire all of
including.
that property.
We are acquiring 7.5 of the 18 acres. Everything outside of what we're purchasing, other than right to the right-hand side of where, let's call it Jeremy Allen Boulevard is going.
He's
that
already
part-
got another street named after
Well,
him.
that was street though. This is boulevard.
That part right there, this part right here,
So where does your property line end on this one? On this map here?
it comes over to here like this, and then down this way, right here. It comes
Okay, so the property line is not delineated on this map?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
That's
That
that's
we-
the only question I
We
have.
apologize for the
That,
confusion.
that
That's the
will
only
be
question I
corrected
have.
before we bring the development plan. That is gonna
Okay.
be corrected,
Okay.
so.
So that was an existing driveway. The existing buildings and barns that are there are all going to be demolished.
Sure, I
And
understand
that's part
that.
of my agreement with the landowner
Okay,
there.
okay.
There is, she is keeping that portion of the property, as I said earlier, because she has equestrian activities going on in the floodplain area, and she wants to be able to still access it.
So your property line is basically going to follow the floodplain boundary?
Yes, for the most part.
Okay,
Just with inside of it, just so we're not encroaching on it. And
Okay.
then your second question regarding the pedestrian path, it is our intention to create, and I've been looking at what the standard is for the Bosque River Trail.
Right.
Either somewhere between a 20 and 50-foot wide parcel that is going to run somewhere down here on the south end of the property.
Right.
Down to
To the
where
river.
Bosque River is, and then kind of cut back to the
Okay.
east just a little
Well,
bit. to find
I find that to be a great benefit of developing this property and being able to tie into the Bosque River Trail.
Commissioners, any other questions, discussion? May I entertain a motion?
Mr. Petronas, you had a question a while ago, and I cut you off. I'm
Before I
sorry.
get to that, I recommend that we approve the concept plan in case number PD 2019-004.
Second.
Second.
All right, those in favor of approving this plan development, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, it passes.
Now, Jeremy, what I understand then is that they will come back at a later time with the development plan.
That's right.
And it's at that particular point in time when, for example, the issue about privacy fence could.
Well, you could have brought it, you could have put it up tonight, I mean, a concept plan, if you wanted to suggest that it be brought back, similar to what we did with the fence on the Green Acres, on the concept plan, you guys suggested a footer, and so when it came back tonight, it had the footer in there. Now, you can, when it comes back next time, and I'm sure the developer will make sure that's in there, you can come back, and if you don't like something, even in the development plan, you can get them to add something, but, typically, it needs to get, we need to get it in there. So I guess, I'm sure the developer has heard the concerns tonight, and we'll address those with the fence, and I'll work with them, and we'll see about trying to make sure when we come back, we have some options, or it's in there, so that way we can appease everybody, so. But future reference with concept plan, you can make that motion with the concept plan with a privacy fence on the north side, or, to make sure everything is covered. So that way when they come back the next time, there's no surprises. But we
The only
can,
thing is that I want to give you two the opportunity to sit down and discuss that in terms of options.
right. We'll come back with some options for you.
Okay, moving on. Case number RZ 2019-001. Applicant Tom Brooks is requesting a rezone of the property being Lot 1 and Part 2, Block 7, tract of the Oak Tree Addition 4 to the City of Stephenville, Erath County, Texas, from multifamily residential district R3 to neighborhood business district B1.
So staff recommends rezoning of Lot 1, Part of 2, Block 7, tract of the Oak Tree Addition 4 to the City of Stephenville, Erath County, from multifamily residential to neighborhood business. The property does not align with the comprehensive plan. There is similar zoning adjacent to the southwest and east. The property is unusually shaped. There will be some difficulties developing the property due to the floodplain. The rezone will allow reasonable use of the property. The developer will need to meet subdivision requirements. Drainage and floodplain will be reviewed in the civil design. The current zoning of Lot 1, Part 2 of Block 7 is multifamily. You can see there. And the future land use calls for it to be multifamily. There is adjacent properties with neighborhood business across the way, so we wouldn't be necessarily creating a spot zone for it. In a lot of cases, I may not even recommend a rezone for this, but because the property is unusually shaped and it's going to be very hard to develop, there is neighborhood business across the way. Staff is recommending a rezone of this property to allow for development of the property. There are still going to be some obstacles that the developer will have to meet, in the review part of it. They are aware of it, and we have met with what they're talking about is doing like a Dollar General or a small store there, and so it would be hard to develop some residential property there, but there may be a fit for this with this unusually property. Let's see if I got anything else to add to that. The property is served by a 12-inch and a 12-inch city water main and sewer main. It's fronting Lingoville, which is served by TxDOT. And then, factors considered with rezone is the compliance with the comprehensive plan. Is the application consistent with the plan? If not, what conditions changed? The surrounding zoning and land use in the area, infrastructure impacts, size and location of the parcel and land, large enough for reasonable use. And so that's where we kind of got into, the reason why staff recommended the rezone is because of some of those factors. So I know Mr. Tom Brooks is here. He is the applicant. He can answer any additional questions you have. And of course, I can answer any questions you may have too.
Thank you, Jeremy. Let's open this to a public hearing. Is there anybody who wishes to speak in favor of this rezone? Anybody who wishes to speak against? All right, we'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, questions, discussions, motions?
We recommend to the city council that we approve the rezoning in case number RZ 20019-001.
I'll second.
All those in favor of this rezone, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, this passes. Thank you. Case number RZ 2019-002. Applicant Gregory Fletcher is requesting a rezone of the property being lot 46, 47, 48, and 49, block 76, tract of the city addition to the city of Stephenville, from industrial district to retail and commercial district. Jeremy.
Applicant Mr. Gregory Fletcher is requesting a rezone of the property from industrial to retail. They are looking to put a church at this location. Industrial zoning is the only zoning that a church is not allowed, and so they are looking to rezone it to commercial zoning. And there is a catty corner from that, there is commercial zoning, so that would be the only zoning in this particular case that staff would recommend for this case. The future land use does call for it to be commercial, so which is why staff recommended it commercial for this particular property. To be consistent with our comprehensive plan. So you guys have the considerations from last time. This property is served by a 6-inch water main. The property is served by a 6-inch sanitary sewer main. The property is fronting 205, which is served by the city. And you got your factors to consider. I can answer any questions you may have. And I believe the applicant is here and can answer any questions as well.
Thank you, Jeremy. Let's open a public hearing. Does anybody wish to speak in favor of this rezone? Okay, you're the applicant, I take. Okay. Do you want to speak to any of? Okay. Anybody wish to speak against this rezone? Please state your name and address.
Yeah, David Dickerson, 124 Blue Jay. This is real different. I never speak against anything. I'm always fighting to get it done. So, and I'm not speaking against the church. It's the implication that if the church puts in a care center, or after, even if I'll give you this breakdown here. I don't know if I made quite enough of it, but start down here, a couple of you look at that. On line 20, if you look at 20 there on the second page, it defines before school or after school. Many churches put in a child care facility, and if you look at the limitations, and then if you look at the first page on the very first sentence we got back this morning, you've got 1,000-foot exclusion from every property line. And if you'll extend that out to that intersection, you can put no restaurants with alcohol, no grocery stores with alcohol, etc. And Jeremy can correct me if I'm wrong. That's my interpretation. And it creates a problem. And there's an arrow view in the back, and I've got 500-foot red lines out from the property to show, and you extend them twice as far as you can see, it takes up that whole intersection. Plus it crosses over to Tom Brooks' 12-acre tract. All of these are good locations for grocery stores. We've previously had motels want to come in there with a restaurant, like a Denny's or an Applebee's. And this is something that I don't know if people are aware of or watch. And Jeremy, you can jump in on that child care if I'm interpreting that wrong. We've already had one instance where somebody bought a B4 alcoholic corner, turned it into a child care, and the first thing he did was come in and he killed the second top priority by all of our research of the people coming in that want to come into town. because of that 1,000-foot exclusion. So that's something that P and Z, I think, needs to watch, and Jerry, you may want to comment. Am I totally interpreting that wrong?
No, I mean, you are interpreting wrong, you're not interpreting wrong. I think, I let the applicant speak to what their future plans is. For this particular rezone, the information that we have is it's gonna be a church, and, you would be looking at 300 feet if you were gonna have a, restaurant with alcohol or alcohol sales, within that. So that would be the one that I would, if you're, considering that, 300 feet, I think you'd still be able to get some of the frontage, let the applicant talk about their future plans with childcare and whatnot. I think if they get into that, then you're looking at the 1,000 feet, but I don't think the applicant, and let him speak to that. They've never talked about childcare with us or doing anything like that, and I don't, size-wise, I don't know if they're gonna be even set up for that inside, but I won't speak to the future plans of that. I just speak to what was submitted by the applicant, and it's gonna be a church and not a childcare facility. So,
Well, an important part of a church is having a youth program, and a lot of them have childcare and stuff in the afternoons and stuff to help grow the church, because we know how it helps to grow a church, and once that happens, then if somebody in any of the congregation or really makes a complaint later, it reduces your potential sales to different people, to a lot of the people that would buy in that commercial corner, in that whole complex there. And it's such a hard thing to determine, and I understand the 300 foot, and that's door to door. And so that gives you leeway. You can actually have churches set back their entries, as in their case, the door is set back a good portion from the front of the road. So, they've got a lot of protection on that 300 foot. I've got a little yellow line that shows the 300 foot deal. But at any rate, it's a concern, and it's something we need to address. I don't know if we could give a variance to the owners if they started childcare. By the way it's defined in 20, it's very easy. If you just keep kids there 2 or 3 hours a day, 3 days a week, you've got a childcare. And believe me, these people come into town, look at this kind of thing. And if the owners in that area, if there's a potential that we're gonna have to fight that, they're gonna buy somewhere else. And so in a lot of ways, it's just not fair to the owners in that area. They bought and invested in this land. Oh, and up front, I own some of it, and so do the Bruners and a bunch of other people. But it's, you invest in that land, and then stuff like this comes up, and 90% of the time, we're gonna be okay. And we can always come in for a variance, and we'd probably get it with the right facility coming in. But there's no guarantee if there's a strong opposition. So, and it does make people take a secondary look. It puts your properties down, a step down in the consideration process. But anyhow, that's all I have to say on that. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions or? Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Fletcher, would you like to address that?
My name is Scott Fletcher. I live at 895 Bluffdale and Anglers Ridge, or Anglers Ridge on Bluffdale. There is no proposed for any kind of child care. There's too much legality and too much responsibility, hired staff and all that kind of stuff. We just want to have a church. That's all we're really even interested in. So,
Why did you pick that area?
I just liked the building, and it was a good deal. That's kind of.
So it was based upon your liking the building, is that
Yes, sir.
correct? And we've got to go from industrial to commercial for the church to even be considered.
All right, so if this was already zoned commercial, this wouldn't be brought in front of you. It's permitted use, it's brought to you. So the future land use calls for all this to be a commercial development. So if somebody else, buys this, rezones a commercial, and then a year later he comes back and wants to put a church in, we're not having this conversation. So, I think there's some considerations here. I think that on your sheet, and you can kind of go through those. I mean, that could be a factor for you to consider. But there is adjacent commercial in the area, and our future land use calls for this to be commercial. So,
Jeremy, let me ask you this: currently in that area, how many commercial businesses are currently operating, if any?
I think I put some on your chart there that there's a vacant commercial onto the north. There's a commercial business. To the south, there's an industrial business. To the east, there's single family, and to the west, there's single family. So it's a pretty good mix. And I think you got more of an industrial use. And I say industrial, I think, to the north, it's, I think you got the cheerleaders that are across the way there. So, that could easily be considered a commercial use as well, even though it's an industrial zoning. Yes,
I
sir.
think there's already a church pretty within, as the crow flies, I think it would. So, it's,
What's in that building now for your,
nothing, ma'am.
it
It's
looks
just
like
an
a
warehouse.
warehouse.
Building. Yes, ma'am, pretty much.
It's the old bingo parlor.
Yes, sir. Flamingo bingo.
Other questions? Okay, thank you, sir.
Good, thank you, ma'am, appreciate it.
Thoughts, commissioners? Motions?
I'm gonna take a chance. I say we recommend approval in case number RZ 2019002 for the rezoning from industrial district to commercial district.
I'll second. Okay, let's take it to a vote. Those in favor, say aye. Those opposed? All right, this motion passes.
That'll be heard April 2nd by council for full approval. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, case number RZ 2019-003. Applicant Gary Lloyd is requesting a rezone of the property being Lot 10, Block 1, tract of the King Addition to the City of Stephenville, Erath County, Texas, from Neighborhood Business B1 to Retail and Commercial District B2. Jeremy.
These next two cases, while they're separate, they are they are basically adjacent to each other, and they're working together for this. I did request that they hear them both separately, just because they are two separate parcels or two different owners, and so you can hear them each individually on their individual merit, but they are working together for these properties. You'll see that staff is recommending a rezone of the property being Lot 10, Block 1, Tract 1 of King Addition from neighborhood business to retail and commercial. The property is currently zoned neighborhood business. There is zoning to the south, the future that is adjacent to it. The use map does call for this area to be neighborhood business. The properties to the west, south are adjacent to be retail, commercial. So to look at the zoning, so there is zoning to the south, west, that is commercial. If you look at, well, that's the future land use to the south, and then there's even industrial to the east. And so the future land use does call for it to be neighborhood business, but a commercial zoning there it should not be a problem. So staff is recommending a rezone to retail commercial. The plan for these for this property is for a restaurant of sorts to be at this property on both of these, or all three of these lots.
One restaurant, I assume.
Yes.
All right, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Anybody wishing to speak in favor of this rezone? Anybody wishing to speak against? All right, closing the public hearing. Commissioners?
I move we approve.
A
Second.
little hazy on the difference between a neighborhood business, which is obviously a business, and a retail business. In the neighborhood business generally a retail business?
Yeah, the uses, and I can pull up and read some to you out of the zoning. So neighborhood business has some limited uses. Typically smaller, less traffic, less congested. I mean, I can read some of the permitted uses for you.
You mentioned Dollar General when we were talking about this other property out there on Lingleville Road. Dollar General is considered a neighborhood business?
It is, and by definition, I'll say that one of the main reasons, and I think the applicant can speak to this, is the potential restaurant that is coming in wanted to be sure that it was either retail or industrial, so that they would be able to put in a drive-through service. And so that is one of the bigger requirements for this rezone and for this
So a
restaurant to
neighborhood
come.
business can't have a drive-through
Right.
feature.
Right.
So we're looking at fast food
Okay.
of some sort?
I've heard different things, so I mean, I just know that we're looking at a restaurant. I've heard some, I don't have the full answer, details. I mean, if anybody wants to share anything, I know we've, hinted around at what it might be, and it's escalated. It started out as a fast food drive-through, and it's escalated to, depends on who you ask. I mean, it could be, the greatest steakhouse in America, but it just depends on what room you're listening to. But I think they do have a developer has it under contract, and then whatever that developer makes of it. So that was a requirement for the rezone, and so that's why the applicant has brought that to us.
Okay.
I make a motion that we approve RZ 2019-003.
Second.
A second.
All those in favor of this rezone, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, this motion passes. Moving on to case number RZ 2019-004. Applicant Cam Ip is requesting a rezone of the property being Lot 1, 1A, 2A, and Part 2B, Block 129, tract of the city addition to the city of Stephenville, Erath County, Texas, from neighborhood business B1 to retail and commercial district B2.
And I probably could put Dr. Cam Ip. I think everybody knows him as that. And but he is basically same thing, recommended a rezone of the property. Part of the deal was it needed to be commercial, industrial. Staff would not recommend industrial in this area. Pretty much the same, similar case. So if you have any questions or anything, I can be more than happy to answer any.
All right, opening in the public hearing. Anybody wishing to speak in favor of this? Anyone opposed? All right, closing the public hearing. Commissioners?
I move we approve.
All right, taking it to a vote. All those in favor of this rezone say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, this passes. And that is the end of our agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Amen.